Hello, my sweet friends. Welcome back to Social Studies. Today, we are going to go more in depth on the three branches of government. So if you remember from one of the previous videos, we kind of went into the three branches of government just a little bit. I just wanted to give you kind of a main gist of what the three branches are, because I didn't want to overwhelm you too much, but today we're going to get into the nitty gritty of it, and I'm going to show you the rest of the flow chart that I have for you guys. But I do want to kind of recap just a little bit. Now, if we remember from the last video on where I had the three branches of government, excuse me, one second. If we remember from the last video when I was talking about the three branches of government, we have our three branches of government from our Constitution. Okay, so our Constitution is a historical and important document in our history that explains how our government works and how it is set up. So how it's set up is in the form of the three branches of government, which was the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Now, each of those have a head at the top of their branch. So for the legislative branch, it is Congress. For the executive branch, it's the president. And then the judicial branch, it's the Supreme Court. So I'm going to share my screen with you now that we kind of just recap just a little bit, because I'm probably going to go over it with you a good couple times within the video. I'm going to share my screen and show you the flow chart that I have for you now. So okay, so here is our flow chart now. So we originally had just this top of our flow chart that stated the three branches of government. And then we had our legislative branch, our executive branch, and our judicial branch. We had the first three main points where in the legislative branch, Congress is the head of it, and they are the ones who makes the laws. We have the executive branch where the head of the executive branch is the president. Excuse me. Then in the judicial branch, we have the Supreme Court being the head of the judicial branch. So I want to just focus on the legislative branch and go one by one. So within the legislative branch, you have Congress that is the head of the legislative branch, and they are the ones who make the laws. Now, these laws, they start off as ideas called bills in Congress. So both parts of Congress must approve the bill for it to be able to send to the president for approval. Now, what I mean by the both parts of Congress is the two parts down here, which the first one is the House of Representatives and the second one is the Senate. Okay, so under the legislative branch, we have Congress who makes the laws, but in Congress, Congress itself has two parts. It has the House of Representatives and the Senate, and bills that are ideas of laws have to get approved by both the House and the Senate in order for its approval to get sent to get to the president. In order for the president to approve it, however, you need to make sure that everything is approved in the House and Senate to get the approval from the president. So speaking of the president, let's move on to the executive branch. Now, the executive branch, like we said, the head of it is the president. Now, the president cannot make laws himself. He can only approve or veto the laws. So he can approve them by saying, check, all right, sounds good, and signing it, or he can veto it, meaning to get rid of it, or he denies it and he doesn't agree with it, okay? Now, the president can nominate people for very important positions in the government. However, the president cannot declare war without Congress's approval. So if the president wants to declare war, he needs to come over here to the legislative branch and ask Congress for approval. So he has to get a certain amount of votes from both the House and the Senate in order to declare war. Okay. Now, the judicial branch is the Supreme Court. They're the ones that head the judicial branch. And within the Supreme Court, they uphold the laws and they settle disagreements. Okay. And what happens is this is where the president comes into play with nominating people for important positions. The president can appoint 9 judges to the court, and the Senate must approve it. So going all the way back to the legislative branch here, has to approve the president's nominations for the judicial branch. And the Supreme Court can throw out any laws that are unconstitutional. Now, unconstitutional means that they go against the Constitution. They do not abide by our government and our rights. All right. So I do want to go over, here we go. I want to go over the checks and balances guys as well. So I'm going to refer to my social studies weekly because it is super, super important that we use our resources and we highlight and we look back at things. So what checks and balances is, okay, it's not a checkbook and it's not how you balance it. That is not what we're talking about when it comes to history. When it comes to history and our social studies and our government, we are talking about checks and balances as how our government keeps itself in check and how it stays balanced. Okay, so that's how you can remember it, is by thinking, okay, our government keeps itself in check to stay in balance. Okay, so checks and balances. Now, the thing about checks and balances is that every single branch of government keeps another one in check and keep it balanced. That way, we want to keep it balanced. That way, not one overpowers the other and completely just rules the world, basically. Okay, so what happens is that one of the ideas was to use this system of checks and balances between the 3 parts to keep it balanced. Now, the Constitution, our very historical, important document, it gives each branch of the U.S. government the power to check on the other 2. Each branch has the power to stop certain actions of another branch if it believes the actions are unconstitutional, meaning it's against the Constitution, or not in the best interest of the country. Like I said, this is going to prevent any, I rule the world, I'm in all this power sort of thing. Okay, it keeps it balanced. It keeps the power balanced. Now, to help make sure that no branch of government becomes too powerful, Congress can pass a law that the president must approve. Okay, so first we start with Congress. So Congress has to pass a law that the president can approve. So there's one check and balance. However, Congress can also override the president's decision to veto or reject the law. Okay, so they have the power to override his decision. So if they feel that this law needs to be a law, but the president doesn't approve of it and he vetoes it, they can come back together and they can override his decision. Now, the thing is that the Supreme Court in the judicial branch, they have the power to strike down a law that has been approved by both Congress and the president. Okay, so Congress is in the legislative and they make the laws. Okay, so if the president in the executive branch decides, no, I want to veto this, I don't approve of it, Congress can override it and approve it. But then there's the judicial branch with the Supreme Court, who, if Congress and the president approve of the law, the Supreme Court can say, no, we don't agree with it, and they can completely override it as well. So there's another check and balance. So we have 3 check and balances so far. Now, excuse me. The thing about the Supreme Court denying or vetoing, sorry, it sounded like I said videoing. Vetoing a law is if they feel that it is unconstitutional. So meaning that it goes against our rights as Americans and it goes against the Constitution. So the thing is that the president, here's another check and balance, the president can appoint justices for the Supreme Court. So like we said, the president he can appoint 9 judges, but he has to have the Senate's approval of those 9 judges. Now, there is so many checks and balances and checks and balances. It's a lot, but our system has it where there is one branch at least checking on one other branch and keeping overpowering the other branches. The whole point of checks and balances is to make sure that none of the branches become too powerful to where it's like, ha 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 ha, I rule the world, which is amazing and a great way of thinking of it because, I mean, this is a democracy. We all have our free will, but we follow what our government has for us. So the fact that our government is keeping themselves in check, hey, that's even better, okay? That keeps it from going back to where the 13 colonies were and having all this destruction and the rebellion and just all of these negative things happening, okay? So, my sweet lovelies, if you guys have any questions about the 3 branches or about checks and balances, make sure that you email me, and I will do my absolute positively, surely best to answer your questions. So, with that being said, I will see you in the next video. Bye, my loves.